there is something happening in your energy field right now that you haven't been told about. Not something that needs to be built. Not something that requires years of spiritual practice or the perfect alignment of circumstances. Something that is already complete, already broadcasting, already in motion. The reality you've been waiting for, the one you catch glimpses of in quiet moments, the one that feels so close you could almost touch it, is not waiting to be created. It has already been called in. Your energy field, shaped by every thought you've been repeating, every emotion you've been rehearsing, every internal state you've been living inside of without realizing it, has been broadcasting a signal into the quantum field every single moment of your life. And that signal has been assembling reality around it this entire time. The only question, and this is the question that changes everything, is what has your aura been saying? Because here is what most people don't understand about their own energy field. They think their thoughts are private. They think what happens in their mind stays in their mind, contained behind their eyes, sealed inside their skull, separate from the world they're trying to change. They believe that reality is something out there, something external, something they need to go and get. And so they keep reaching outward, keep looking outward, keep waiting for something outside them to finally shift. But your aura knows something different. Your aura, the measurable electromagnetic field generated by your heart and your nervous system, doesn't know the difference between what you're thinking and what you're broadcasting. It doesn't know the difference between a thought you've had once and a thought you've repeated 10,000 times. But it does know the difference in signal strength. It does know the difference in coherence. And it does know the difference between a field that is broadcasting clearly and a field that is broadcasting contradiction. Every thought you repeat becomes a frequency. Every emotion you rehearse becomes a wave. Every internal state you return to again and again, whether you chose it consciously or simply inherited it from years of conditioning, becomes part of the signal your aura is sending into the quantum field at every moment. And the quantum field, which is not random and is not indifferent, reads that signal and assembles reality around it. This is not metaphor. This is not poetry. This is the measurable, verifiable, quantum mechanical reality of what your personal energy field is doing right now. And if you've been thinking a particular thought repeatedly about who you are, about what's possible for you, about what you deserve, about how life works, then your energy field has already locked in the reality that matches that signal. It hasn't arrived in your visible experience yet, but it's already done. It's already in motion. The quantum field has already begun assembling the circumstances, the encounters, the opportunities, the exact configuration of reality that matches what you've been broadcasting. The thumbnail you saw before you arrived here said it simply: it's already done. And by the time this transmission is complete, you're going to understand exactly what that means for your energy field specifically, not as an abstract concept, not as a hopeful idea, but as a precise description of what your aura has already been doing on your behalf. Let's begin with what your field actually is. Right now, in this moment, your heart is generating an electromagnetic field that extends several feet beyond your physical body in every direction. This isn't a spiritual claim. The Heart Math Institute has been measuring this field for decades. Their research shows that the heart's electromagnetic field is the most powerful rhythmic electromagnetic field produced by the human body, approximately 60 times greater in amplitude than the electrical activity of the brain, and detectable several feet from the body using sensitive magnetometers. That field is your aura, not the mystical colored haze that appears in spiritual paintings, though there is something real and measurable even behind that depiction. Your aura is a living, dynamic, constantly fluctuating electromagnetic field that is generated by the coherence or incoherence of your internal state, and it broadcasts information about that state into the quantum field every single moment. Here's what makes this extraordinary. This field isn't just radiating outward. It's communicating. Research from the Heart Math Institute shows that when two people are in close proximity, their electromagnetic fields interact. One person's heart rhythm can actually influence the brain waves of another person nearby. You've felt this. You've walked into a room and felt the energy shift. You've sat next to someone and felt inexplicably calm or inexplicably anxious without a word being exchanged. That's not your imagination. That's your energy field reading theirs and theirs reading yours. But the field doesn't just interact with other people. It interacts with the quantum field itself, the underlying fabric of reality from which all physical experience emerges. And this is where the science of your aura becomes the science of your life. The quantum field, sometimes called the 0-point field, sometimes called the unified field, is not empty space. It is a field of infinite potential, teeming with information, responsive to observation, responsive to frequency, responsive to the coherent signal of a conscious energy field. Quantum physics has shown us, through decades of rigorous experimentation, that particles don't have based states until they are observed, that the act of observation collapses a wave of probability into a specific reality, that consciousness and matter are not separate. They are in constant, dynamic relationship. Your aura is the instrument through which your consciousness interfaces with that field. And what determines the quality of that interface? What determines whether your field is broadcasting a clear, powerful, coherent signal, or a fragmented, contradictory, weakened one, is the nature of your repeated thoughts and emotions. Not the occasional thought, not the thought you had once in a moment of inspiration. The thought you keep having, the emotional state you keep returning to, the internal story you've been rehearsing so many times that it stopped feeling like a story and started feeling like truth. Those repeated patterns are what have shaped your aura, and your aura is what has been shaping your reality. Now let me show you something about your field that most people never learn. What we're exploring today is one layer of something much larger. If you want the complete map, the full quantum architecture of how your signal works and how to return it to coherence, I've written something for you called the Remembering Field, a quantum guide to returning to the light you forgot you were carrying, and it walks you through all 7 movements from unconscious broadcast to conscious, coherent radiance, grounded in the quantum mechanics of your actual electromagnetic field. Your aura has been doing this your entire life, and today we're making it conscious. But if you want to go all the way, the Remembering Field was written precisely for this moment in your understanding, and it's linked in the pinned comment below. There is a principle in neuroscience called Hebbian learning. It's often summarized as neurons that fire together, wire together. Every time you think the same thought, you activate the same neural circuits. And the more you activate them, the stronger they become, until those circuits stop being just thoughts and start being automatic patterns, hardwired responses, the default operating system of your nervous system. But here's what most people miss. Those neural patterns don't just live in your brain. They live in your body. They live in the electromagnetic field your body generates. They become the frequency of your aura. When you've been thinking a thought repeatedly, I'm not good enough, or things never work out for me, or I have to struggle for everything, or I'm always overlooked. That thought isn't just a passing mental event. It has been rehearsed into your nervous system. Your body has learned to feel the emotion that matches that thought. And that emotion, that bodily state, is what your heart generates its electromagnetic field from. This is the mechanism. This is the precise quantum mechanical reason why your repeated thoughts have been shaping your reality. Not because the universe is listening to your words, not because there's some cosmic scoreboard tracking your affirmations, but because your repeated thoughts have been generating repeated emotions, and those repeated emotions have been shaping the coherence and frequency of your electromagnetic field. And that field has been broadcasting a signal into the quantum field that assembles reality around it. You have not been just thinking. You have been broadcasting. And here's the part that will either comfort you deeply or shake you awake, depending on where you are right now. The reality that matches your signal is already assembled. It's already done. It's not waiting in some distant future for you to earn it or deserve it or finally get everything right. It exists in the quantum field as a collapsed probability, a reality that has already been called into being by the coherence of your signal, and it is moving through the unseen layers of reality toward your visible experience right now. The only thing that can delay it is incoherence. The only thing that can redirect it is a shift in signal. And the only thing that can accelerate it is becoming conscious of what you've been broadcasting and choosing to broadcast with intention. You've been glowing this whole time. Now you get to see it. If this transmission is landing in your field the way I sense it is, take a moment to like this video and subscribe so these activations keep finding you. Now let's go deeper. Let me take you deeper into what your aura has been doing, specifically into the mechanism by which your repeated thoughts have already locked in a reality you haven't seen yet. Imagine your energy field as a radio tower. Every radio tower broadcasts on a specific frequency. The frequency it broadcasts on determines what receivers can pick up its signal. A tower broadcasting on 98.7 FM cannot be heard on 11.5 FM, no matter how powerful the signal. The frequency determines the reception. Your aura works the same way. The frequency your field broadcasts, determined by the coherence of your heart's electromagnetic field, shaped by your dominant emotional states, reinforced by your repeated thoughts, determines what can reach you from the quantum field, not what you consciously want, not what you intellectually know you deserve. What your field is actually broadcasting at the level of embodied emotion and repeated neural pattern. This is why people can know everything about the law of attraction, can recite every principle of manifestation, can say all the right affirmations, and still not see the reality they want materialize. Because knowing is not broadcasting. Saying is not feeling. Thinking a new thought once is not the same as having rehearsed a new emotional state into your nervous system. The quantum field responds to coherence. It responds to the alignment between what you think and what you feel. And if there's a gap, if your thoughts are saying one thing and your body is still feeling another, that gap creates incoherence in your field. And an incoherent field doesn't broadcast a clear signal. It broadcasts static. But here's what's extraordinary about your situation right now. The fact that you're here in this transmission means something about your field is already shifting. Something in your energy has already begun to move toward coherence. You don't arrive at a transmission like this by accident. Your field called this in. Your aura, which has been broadcasting your signal this entire time, has been broadcasting a readiness to see, to understand, to become conscious of what's been happening in your energy field. And that readiness called this moment into being. So let me ask you something, and I want you to actually feel into this rather than just think about it. What thought have you been repeating most? Not the inspiring thought you try to think when you're feeling good. The thought that comes automatically. The thought that shows up without invitation. The thought you have when you wake up at 3 a.m. and can't get back to sleep. The thought that follows you through your day, like a shadow you've stopped noticing because it's been with you so long. That thought, that specific, repeated, automatic thought, has been shaping your aura. And your aura has been broadcasting it as a signal. And the quantum field has been assembling a reality that matches it. Now here's where this becomes genuinely extraordinary. There is a concept in quantum physics called the observer effect. In its simplest form, it describes the phenomenon by which the act of observation collapses a quantum wave function, a wave of probability, into a specific, measurable reality. Before observation, a quantum particle exists in a superposition of all possible states simultaneously. The moment it is observed, it collapses into one specific state. This principle, which has been rigorously demonstrated in laboratory conditions, has profound implications for how your aura shapes reality. Because your energy field is not a passive observer. It is an active one. It doesn't just notice what's in the quantum field. It collapses specific probabilities into reality based on the frequency it's broadcasting. Think about that for a moment. Your aura, your personal electromagnetic field, generated by your heart and shaped by your repeated thoughts and emotions, is collapsing quantum probabilities into specific realities every moment of every day. You are not waiting for reality to happen to you. You are, at the quantum level, actively participating in the assembly of every experience you have. And if your field has been broadcasting a consistent signal, even an unconscious one, even one you inherited from conditioning rather than chose deliberately, then it has been consistently collapsing specific probabilities into specific realities. The pattern of your life is not random. It is the echo of your broadcast. Your aura knows. It has always known. It has been doing its job perfectly, precisely, without a single moment of rest. The question was never whether your field was working. The question was whether you knew what it was saying. Now you do. And now, let me tell you about a woman named Lyra. Lyra had spent years trying to change her life. She had read the books, attended the workshops, written the vision boards, said the affirmations in the mirror every morning with as much conviction as she could muster. She wanted a different life, a life with more ease, more abundance, more love, more of the quiet confidence she watched other people seem to carry effortlessly. And she wanted it genuinely. There was nothing false about her desire. But every morning, before she got to the mirror, before she said her affirmations, before she opened the books, there were the first thoughts, the ones that arrived before she was fully awake, the ones that came in the gap between sleep and consciousness, when the mask was still off and the conditioning ran free. Not enough. Behind. Something's wrong. It's always like this. She didn't choose those thoughts. She had never chosen them. They had arrived so early in her life, in the family she grew up in the experiences that had shaped her nervous system before she had words for what was happening, that by the time she was old enough to question them, they had already been rehearsed into her body. They weren't thoughts anymore. They were feelings. They were the baseline emotional state her body returned to automatically, regardless of what her conscious mind was trying to achieve. And so there was a gap, a profound, persistent gap between what Lyra was consciously trying to broadcast and what her body was actually transmitting. Her aura was incoherent, not because she was broken, not because she was doing it wrong, but because the signal her heart was generating, shaped by decades of repeated emotional patterns, was in constant tension with the signal her conscious mind was trying to create. She would sit down to meditate and feel the new possibility. She would genuinely touch a state of calm, of openness, of something that felt like the life she wanted. And then she would stand up and walk back into her day. And within minutes, the old feeling would return. The familiar heaviness, the background hum of not enough. And she would think, I'm not making progress. I'm not doing it right. Nothing is changing. But something was happening that Lyra couldn't see yet. Because every time she sat down, every time she deliberately, consciously, intentionally generated a new emotional state and held it even briefly, she was doing something to her energy field that was more powerful than she knew. She was introducing a new frequency into her broadcast. She was, for those moments, creating coherence. And those moments of coherence were collapsing new quantum probabilities into the field around her. The reality she wanted wasn't waiting for her to be perfect. It wasn't waiting for her to eliminate every unconscious thought or resolve every old emotion. It was responding to every genuine moment of coherent signal she generated. It was assembling itself in the unseen layers of reality, piece by piece, moment by moment. Every time her field became clear. She just couldn't see it yet, because the visible layer of reality is always the last to catch up. One morning, Lyra woke up, and before she reached for the affirmations, before she went to the mirror, she simply lay still. And instead of trying to think different thoughts, she placed her hand on her heart, and she asked herself one question. Not what do I want, but what have I been feeling? And the answer came immediately, not as a thought, as a physical sensation in her chest, a tightness, a holding, a bracing against something that hadn't happened yet, but that her body was perpetually preparing for. She didn't try to fix it. She didn't try to replace it with a positive feeling. She just felt it, fully, with her hand on her heart and her complete attention. And something extraordinary happened. The tightness began to soften, not because she forced it, but because for the first time she had actually seen it. She had brought conscious awareness, which is itself a coherent field, into contact with the old signal. And in that contact, something shifted. Her aura, in that moment, changed frequency. Not permanently, not completely, but genuinely. The signal her heart was broadcasting shifted, even slightly, from the frequency of bracing and lack to something closer to presence, to openness, to the very quality of being she had been trying to generate through affirmations for years, and she didn't know it yet. But that morning, that single morning of genuine contact with her own field, was the moment the reality she had been calling in began to accelerate its arrival. Because the quantum field doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be coherent, even briefly, even imperfectly, even for just a moment of genuine, conscious, embodied presence in your own energy field. And that is exactly what you're going to do right now. This is your first radiance practice in this transmission. And I want you to bring your full presence to it, because what we're about to do is not an exercise. It is a direct intervention in your own energy field. Find a comfortable position. If you're driving or doing something that requires your attention, come back to this when you can be fully present. If you're able to be still, let your body settle. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breath slow. Now place your awareness at the center of your chest, not on your heart as an organ, but on the energetic center of your chest, the place where you feel emotion most strongly, the place where love lives, where grief lives, where longing lives. That center. Now breathe into that place. Not a forced breath. A gentle, deliberate breath that moves your awareness deeper into the center of your chest with each inhale. And as you breathe, I want you to ask yourself this question, not to answer it intellectually, to feel it. What has been the most repeated feeling in my energy field lately? Not the feeling you want to have, the feeling that's actually been there, the one that shows up in the quiet moments, the one your body returns to when nothing is distracting it. Feel for it. Let it arise. Don't judge it. Don't try to change it. Just let it be present in your awareness for a moment. Because here's what I want you to understand. The moment you bring conscious awareness to that feeling, the moment you actually see what your field has been broadcasting, you change the broadcast, not by replacing it with something else, but by becoming the observer of it. And in quantum mechanics, the observer changes what is observed. Your conscious awareness is the most coherent field you can bring to your aura. When you become aware of your own signal, you introduce a quality of presence and clarity that immediately begins to shift the coherence of your field. You don't have to do anything else in this moment. Just see it. Just feel it. Just be consciously present with what has been broadcasting unconsciously. Now, still with your awareness in your chest, I want you to introduce something new. Not a thought, a feeling. The feeling of something being complete. The feeling of something being done. Not hoped for. Done. You've felt this before, maybe in a small way. The moment you finished something you'd been working on, the moment a worry you'd been carrying turned out to be unnecessary, the moment something you'd been waiting for finally arrived, that specific quality of completion, of it being handled, of the weight lifting. Let that feeling arise in your chest, even slightly, even as a whisper of a sensation. Because that feeling, that specific emotional frequency, is the signal your aura broadcasts when it is aligned with a reality that has already been completed in the quantum field. It is the frequency of done, of already assembled, of on its way. And here's what's true, right now, in this moment. The reality your field has been calling in, the one shaped by your repeated thoughts, your genuine desires, your deepest knowing of who you are and what you're here for. That reality is already done in the quantum field. It has already been assembled by the coherence of every genuine moment you've generated. It is moving through the unseen layers toward your visible experience. Feel that, even for a moment. Let your body feel the truth of it. Your aura is broadcasting completion. Your field is coherent. Your signal is clear. That's not imagination. That's your electromagnetic signature shifting in real time. And I want to pause here and ask you something from a place of genuine curiosity. Have you ever had a moment where you felt your own energy shift? Where a room responded to you differently? Where someone reflected your light back to you unexpectedly? Where you could feel your own field activating in a way that surprised you? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. What did that feel like in your body, in your field? Share it, because your experience matters to this community. Now let me show you something even deeper about your field. There is a layer of aura mechanics that most people never encounter. And it explains something that has probably confused you about your own experience of trying to change. You've had moments of genuine breakthrough, moments where you felt it, the new frequency, the new possibility, the sense of something opening. And then, sometimes within hours, sometimes within days, you found yourself back in the old feeling, the old thought pattern, the old baseline. And you probably thought, I lost it. I went backward. I can't hold it. But you didn't lose it. And you didn't go backward. What happened was something much more precise and much more interesting. Your energy field has a dominant frequency, a kind of home base that it returns to automatically when you're not consciously directing it. This dominant frequency is determined by what neuroscientists call your emotional set point, and what quantum field researchers would call your field's baseline coherence signature. It's the average frequency of your field over time, shaped by all the repeated thoughts and emotions you've been rehearsing throughout your life. When you have a breakthrough, when you genuinely access a higher frequency state, your field temporarily shifts above its dominant frequency. You feel it. It's real. The shift in your aura is measurable. But then something happens. Your nervous system, which has been calibrated to your dominant frequency for years, begins to pull you back. Not because you failed, not because the higher state was an illusion, but because your body is doing exactly what it was designed to do: return to the familiar. This is what researchers call emotional homeostasis. Your nervous system, like your physical body, has a set point it tries to maintain. And just like your body temperature returns to 98.6 degrees after a fever, your emotional state returns to its set point after a temporary elevation. The way to change this is not to try harder in your breakthrough moments. It is to raise the set point itself, to rehearse the new frequency so many times, so consistently, so embodied, that it becomes the new familiar, the new home base, the new default that your nervous system returns to automatically. And here is the quantum dimension of this that makes it genuinely extraordinary. Every time you return to the higher frequency state, even after you've drifted back to the old baseline, even after you've had what feels like a setback, you are not starting over. You are building. Because each return to coherence leaves a trace in your energy field, a kind of quantum memory of that state. And over time, those traces accumulate. They change the structure of your field. They gradually shift your dominant frequency upward. This is why the practice matters more than the peak experience. This is why showing up to your own energy field consistently, not perfectly, not dramatically, but consistently, is what actually changes your broadcast over time. The reality that's already been assembled in the quantum field isn't waiting for you to have a perfect, sustained peak experience. It's responding to the trajectory of your field. And if your trajectory is upward, if each week your average frequency is slightly higher than the week before, if your field is gradually becoming more coherent, if you are slowly but surely raising your set point, then the reality that matches your higher signal is accelerating toward you. Not because you finally got it right, because your field is moving in the direction of alignment. And here's what I want you to feel into for a moment. You have been moving in that direction. The fact that you're here, engaging with this transmission, asking these questions, bringing this level of conscious attention to your own energy field, that is not a neutral act. That is a high frequency act. That is your aura in coherence. And every moment of coherence shifts your trajectory. Your light is on. It has always been on. Now let's talk about the specific mechanism by which your repeated thoughts lock in a reality. Because this is the core of what this transmission is about. And I want you to understand it at a level that goes beyond intellectual knowledge into genuine, embodied recognition. When you repeat a thought, you don't just activate a neural circuit. You generate an emotion. The emotion generates a biochemical response in your body. That biochemical response shapes the coherence of your heart's electromagnetic field. And that field broadcasts a signal into the quantum field that collapses specific probabilities into reality. This is a chain reaction, and it runs automatically, continuously, without your conscious direction, until you become conscious of it. But here's the extraordinary part. The chain runs in both directions. You can change your thoughts to change your emotions. That's the approach most people try first. And it works, but slowly. Because thoughts alone don't immediately change the body's emotional set point. The body has its own momentum. But you can also change your emotions directly, through breath, through movement, through deliberate cultivation of specific felt states. And that changes your thoughts. Because when your body is in a different emotional state, it generates different thoughts automatically. This is why the same situation can look completely different depending on how you're feeling when you encounter it. And at the deepest level, you can change your field directly through the cultivation of heart coherence, through the deliberate generation of high-frequency emotional states like appreciation, love, and genuine openness. And that changes both your emotions and your thoughts, because the field is upstream of both. The Heart Math Institute's research on heart coherence demonstrates this precisely. When the heart's electromagnetic field is in a state of coherence, generated by positive emotional states like appreciation, compassion, and genuine care, the brain's neural patterns synchronize with the heart's rhythm. Coherent heart rhythms actually entrain the brain into a state of greater clarity, creativity, and perceptual openness. The body's stress hormones decrease. The immune system strengthens, and the electromagnetic field the body broadcasts becomes measurably more ordered, more powerful, and more expansive. In other words, when your heart is coherent, your aura is at its most powerful. And when your aura is at its most powerful, it is broadcasting the clearest, most compelling signal into the quantum field, collapsing the probabilities that match your highest frequency into reality. This is the science of your light. This is the quantum mechanics of your aura, and it is not something you need to earn or achieve. It is something you already possess, already generate, already broadcast. The only question is whether you're broadcasting it consciously or unconsciously. Right now, you're choosing consciously. Let me show you another layer of this. There is something that happens in your energy field when you repeat a thought, not just in your mind, but in your body. When a thought has been rehearsed so many times that it has become a felt state, a bodily reality, a physical sensation you can locate and identify. When a thought reaches this level of embodiment, something shifts in its relationship to the quantum field. A thought that lives only in the mind is a relatively weak signal. The mind generates electrical activity, yes, but the heart's electromagnetic field is 60 times more powerful than the brain's. And the heart's field is shaped not by thoughts, but by emotional states, by the felt, embodied experience of specific frequencies. So when a thought becomes a feeling, when it moves from the mind into the body, from concept into sensation, from idea into lived experience, it enters the heart's field. And when it enters the heart's field, it becomes part of what your aura is broadcasting. This is why the thoughts that have become feelings are so much more powerful in shaping your reality than the thoughts that remain purely mental. The thought you've had once about something you want is a whisper in your field. The thought you've rehearsed into a bodily state, the thought that has become a feeling you return to automatically, is a clear, sustained, powerful broadcast. And this is true whether the thought is one you chose or one you inherited. Whether it's a thought about abundance or a thought about lack. Whether it's a thought about your worthiness or a thought about your smallness. The mechanism doesn't discriminate. It simply broadcasts what has been rehearsed into the body with the most consistency and the most emotional intensity. This is why your repeated thoughts have already locked in a reality. Not because the universe is punishing you for your negative thoughts, not because you've been doing something wrong, but because the quantum field is responding to the coherent signal of your embodied emotional states. And those states have been shaped by the thoughts you've been repeating most. And this is why, when you change the embodied state, when you don't just think a new thought, but actually rehearse a new feeling into your body until it becomes as automatic and familiar as the old one, the reality that assembles around you begins to change, not because you wished hard enough, because you changed your broadcast. Now I want to go even deeper with you, into something that I think will genuinely shift how you understand your own energy field. There is a quality of thought that is more powerful than any other in shaping your aura. It is not positive thinking. It is not visualization. It is not affirmation. It is certainty. Certainty is the emotional frequency of knowing, not hoping, not wanting, not believing with effort. Knowing. The kind of knowing that doesn't require evidence because it is itself the evidence. The kind of knowing that your body recognizes as truth before your mind has finished processing the idea. When you are in a state of genuine certainty, not performed certainty, not forced certainty, but the real, embodied, felt sense of knowing something is true, your heart's electromagnetic field reaches its highest coherence. The signal your aura broadcasts becomes maximally clear and maximally powerful. And the quantum field responds to that signal with extraordinary speed and precision. This is why the thumbnail of this transmission says what it says. It's already done. Not as a comforting story, not as wishful thinking, as a description of what happens in the quantum field when your energy field broadcasts with genuine certainty. When you know, when you genuinely, bodily, electromagnetically know that something is real, you are broadcasting the frequency of certainty into the quantum field. And the quantum field, which responds to observation by collapsing wave functions into specific realities, responds to the frequency of certainty by accelerating the collapse of the probability that matches your signal into your visible experience. In other words, certainty doesn't just make you feel better about waiting. It actually changes the timeline of what arrives. And here's where it gets deeply personal. You have things you know, not hope. Know. Things that, when you get very quiet and very honest with yourself, feel true in a way that doesn't require external validation. Things about who you are, about what you're here to do, about what your life is moving toward. Things that have been true in your field for a long time, even when your circumstances didn't reflect them, even when the people around you didn't see them, even when you yourself tried to talk yourself out of them. Those knowings are not delusion. They are not wishful thinking. They are your aura, broadcasting a signal about a reality that already exists in the quantum field, a reality that your field has been calling in, that has already been assembled in the unseen layers, that is moving toward your visible experience right now. The question is whether you will let yourself know what you know, whether you will let your body feel the certainty that your deepest self has been carrying this whole time, whether you will stop dimming the signal with doubt and contradiction and the performance of humility that is actually just fear in disguise. Because the moment you let yourself know, really know, in your body, in your field, in your aura, the broadcast becomes clear. The static resolves. The signal locks in. And the reality that has already been assembled begins to move through the final layers toward your visible experience. It's already done. The only thing between you and seeing it is the clarity of your signal. Now let me tell you about a man named Silas. Silas had a knowing he'd been carrying for years. It lived in his chest, not as a comfortable warmth, but as something more like an ache, a persistent, low-grade sense of something he was supposed to be doing, something he was supposed to become, that he kept circling around without fully landing in. He could feel it most clearly in the early mornings, in the quiet before the day started. In those moments, something in him knew what he was capable of, knew what his life was moving toward, knew that the version of himself he was living in wasn't the only version available to him, that there was something larger, something more aligned, something that felt like the actual shape of who he was, waiting just beyond the edge of what he could currently see. But then the day would start, and with it, the thoughts. What if I'm wrong? What if this is just ego? What if I try and fail? What if I'm too old, too late, or too far behind? What if the people I respect look at me and see someone who overestimated themselves? And those thoughts, which were not new, which had been his companions for years, would do something specific to his energy field. They would introduce incoherence. They would create static in the signal his aura was broadcasting. They would take the clear, powerful, certain frequency of his morning knowing and fragment it with doubt until the broadcast became muddled, contradictory, unclear. And the quantum field, which responds to coherence, would respond to that incoherence by assembling a reality that matched it. Not the reality of his knowing, the reality of his doubt, the reality of the question marks, the reality of the man who circled the edge of his potential without landing in it. Silas wasn't failing because he lacked capability. He wasn't stuck because the universe had decided against him. He was broadcasting a fragmented signal, one part knowing, one part doubt. And the quantum field was assembling a fragmented reality to match. One day, Silas did something different. Not dramatically different. Not the kind of thing that looks like a turning point from the outside. He simply stopped arguing with his knowing. He was sitting with his morning coffee, and the knowing was there as usual. That warm ache in his chest, that persistent sense of something true about who he was and where he was going. And the doubt thoughts started to arrive, as they always did. And instead of engaging with them, instead of trying to reason through them, or suppress them, or replace them with affirmations, he simply said, quietly, internally, to no one in particular, I know what I know, not as a declaration, not as a performance, as a statement of fact, as a settling into what was already true in his field. And something happened. The incoherence in his field, the static generated by years of arguing with his own knowing, began to quiet. Not all at once, but noticeably, like a radio signal that had been half-tuned, suddenly locking into clarity. His aura, in that moment, became coherent around his knowing. The signal his field was broadcasting shifted from the frequency of doubt to the frequency of certainty. Not because his circumstances had changed, not because he had new evidence, but because he had stopped introducing contradiction into his own broadcast. In the weeks that followed, things began to move. Not dramatically, not in the way movies depict transformation, but in the quiet, unmistakable way that reality shifts when a signal becomes clear. Doors that had been closed began to open. Conversations that had been impossible began to happen. Opportunities that had been invisible began to appear. The reality that had already been assembled in the quantum field, the one his knowing had been calling in for years, began to arrive in his visible experience. Not because he finally deserved it, not because he finally worked hard enough, or believed hard enough, or said the right things, because he finally stopped fragmenting his own signal, because he let himself broadcast with the coherence of his actual knowing. And that is available to you right now. Let's do another radiance practice. This one is more specific, more targeted, more direct. I want you to bring your awareness back to your chest, back to that energetic center where your deepest feelings live. And I want you to find your knowing, the thing you know, not the thing you hope, not the thing you're trying to believe, the thing that, when you get very quiet, is simply true. The thing about who you are, or what your life is moving toward, or what you're capable of, that lives in you as a felt certainty. Even if it's been covered by doubt, even if it's been quiet lately, even if you've been afraid to say it out loud, find it, let it arise. It might feel like warmth. It might feel like that specific ache Silas felt, the feeling of something true that hasn't fully arrived yet. It might feel like a quiet, steady certainty that doesn't shout, but doesn't waver either. Let yourself feel it right now, in your body, in your chest, in your field. And now, instead of immediately covering it with the doubt thoughts, instead of immediately qualifying it, or questioning it, or making it smaller, just let it be there. Let it exist in your field, without contradiction, even for 30 seconds, even for a single breath. Because in this moment, your aura is broadcasting that knowing. Your heart's electromagnetic field is generating coherence around that signal, and the quantum field is reading it. This is what it means to broadcast with intention, not to force a feeling, not to perform a state, to find what is already true in your field and let it be present without interference. Now take a breath, a full, slow breath that moves all the way down into your belly. And as you exhale, imagine your field expanding. Imagine the electromagnetic field generated by your heart extending outward, 3 feet, 5 feet, 10 feet, carrying the frequency of your knowing into the quantum field around you. That's not visualization. That's a description of what your heart's electromagnetic field is actually doing. You're just becoming conscious of it. Feel your field right now. Notice what's radiating. That's your aura at coherence. That's your broadcast at clarity. That's the signal that the quantum field reads and assembles reality around. Your light is on. It has always been on. And right now, it is broadcasting something extraordinary. Now let me show you something about the relationship between your repeated thoughts and time, because this is where the thumbnail makes complete sense. In classical physics, time is linear. Cause comes before effect. You plant a seed, and then the plant grows. You take an action, and then the result appears. Everything is sequential. Everything is causal. Everything moves in one direction, from past to future. But in quantum physics, the relationship between cause and effect is far more complex. Quantum systems don't just move forward in time. They exist in superpositions of states. They are influenced by future boundary conditions as well as past ones. The act of measurement, of observation, doesn't just reveal a pre-existing state. It participates in the creation of that state. And at the level of your energy field, this means something profound. The reality you've been calling in through your repeated thoughts and embodied emotional states doesn't just exist in the future waiting to arrive. It exists as a quantum probability in the field right now. It has been assembled by the coherence of your signal. It is real, not in your visible experience yet, but real in the quantum field. Real in the sense that a wave function is real before it collapses. Real in the sense that a seed is already the tree it will become. It's already done, not in the future, in the field, now. And the moment your signal becomes coherent enough to match the frequency of that assembled reality, the moment your aura broadcasts at the frequency of the thing you've been calling in, rather than the frequency of waiting for it, or doubting it, or being confused about why it hasn't arrived yet, the wave function collapses. The quantum probability becomes visible reality. The thing that was already done in the field becomes the thing that is done in your life. This is not a spiritual concept dressed up in scientific language. This is the actual mechanism of how your personal energy field interacts with the quantum field to shape your visible experience. And understanding it changes everything about how you relate to the gap between where you are and where you're going. The gap is not a problem. The gap is the distance between your current signal and the signal that matches the reality you've called in. And the way to close the gap is not to work harder in the physical world. It is to become more coherent in your energy field, to broadcast more clearly, to let your aura carry the frequency of the reality you've been calling in, rather than the frequency of the distance between you and it. Because when you broadcast the frequency of distance, the feeling of it not being here yet, the feeling of waiting, the feeling of something being missing, you are broadcasting a signal that collapses the probability of distance. You are calling in more waiting, more absence, more of the gap. But when you broadcast the frequency of completion, the feeling of it being done, the feeling of your knowing being true, the feeling of the reality you've called in being real right now in the field, even if it hasn't arrived in your visible experience yet, you are broadcasting a signal that collapses the probability of completion. You are calling in the arrival. This is what it means to embody the reality before it arrives. Not to pretend it's here when it isn't. Not to deny the current state of your visible experience, but to hold in your energy field the frequency of the reality that is already assembled in the quantum field, to broadcast the signal of done, of complete, of true, and to let the quantum field respond by collapsing that probability into your visible experience. It's already done. Now, let your field know it. Now let me speak to something that I suspect is present in your field right now. Something that has been quietly running in the background of this transmission, asking its question. If my repeated thoughts have already locked in a reality, what if those thoughts weren't the ones I wanted? What if the thoughts I've been repeating most aren't the high-frequency, coherent, certain ones? What if they've been the doubt thoughts, the fear thoughts, the not enough thoughts? What if my aura has been broadcasting something I wouldn't have chosen if I'd known what I was doing? This is a real question, and it deserves a real answer. First, yes. For most people, the thoughts that have been most repeated, the ones most deeply rehearsed into the body, most consistently present in the field, are not the ones they would consciously choose. They are the inherited ones, the conditioned ones, the ones that arrived before there was enough consciousness to evaluate them, the ones that were rehearsed into the nervous system by experiences that had nothing to do with who you actually are. This is not a failure. This is the human condition. Every person on this planet has been broadcasting a signal shaped partly by conditioning, rather than purely by conscious choice. Every person has a field that carries the frequency of old patterns alongside the frequency of genuine desire. Every person has been, to some degree, broadcasting unconsciously. But here is what changes everything. Unconscious broadcasting and conscious broadcasting are not equivalent in power. A conscious signal, a frequency you are deliberately, intentionally, embodiedly generating, is not just slightly more powerful than an unconscious one. It is categorically more powerful, because conscious broadcasting engages the full coherence-generating capacity of your energy field. It brings your heart, your nervous system, your attention, and your intention into alignment. And that alignment creates a level of field coherence that an unconscious pattern running on autopilot simply cannot match. This is why the moment you become conscious of your signal, the moment you actually see what your aura has been broadcasting, the moment you stop being a passive transmitter and become an active one, the game changes completely. Not because you've eliminated the old patterns, not because you've achieved perfect coherence, but because conscious coherence is so much more powerful than unconscious incoherence that even a small amount of deliberate, intentional, embodied broadcasting begins to shift the dominant frequency of your field. And here's the other thing I need you to understand. The reality that has been assembled in the quantum field by your unconscious broadcast is not the only reality available to you. The quantum field is not a one-way street. It is not a prison sentence. It is a field of infinite probability, constantly responsive to the signal you're broadcasting right now. Yes, your past signal has been assembling a specific reality. But your current signal, the one you are generating right now, in this moment, with this level of conscious attention to your own field, is also assembling a reality. And the quantum field doesn't privilege the past signal over the present one. It responds to coherence. And your present, conscious, intentional signal is more coherent than your past, unconscious, automatic one. This is why it's never too late. This is why the past doesn't determine the future at the quantum level, because the quantum field is not reading your history. It is reading your current broadcast. And your current broadcast is changing right now in this transmission as you become more conscious of your own signal. What you radiate, reality assembles around, and you are choosing right now what to radiate. Let me take you into the final deep layer of this transmission, because there's something about the mechanics of your aura that ties everything together. The repeated thoughts, the embodied states, the quantum field, the reality that's already done, into a single, clear, empowering understanding. Your energy field has a property that physicists call coherence. In physics, coherence refers to the degree to which the waves in a system are in phase with each other, aligned, ordered, moving in the same direction, with the same rhythm. A laser is coherent light, all the photons moving in perfect alignment, creating a beam of extraordinary power and precision. A regular light bulb is incoherent, photons moving in all directions, diffusing their energy, creating illumination, but not focused power. Your aura works the same way. When your field is coherent, when your thoughts, emotions, and embodied states are aligned, when your heart is generating a smooth, ordered electromagnetic rhythm, when there's no fundamental contradiction between what you're thinking and what you're feeling, your broadcast is like a laser, precise, powerful, penetrating. The quantum field reads it clearly and responds with precision. When your field is incoherent, when your thoughts say one thing and your body feels another, when your desires contradict your beliefs, when your conscious intentions are in constant tension with your unconscious patterns, your broadcast is diffuse, scattered. The quantum field reads it as static and assembles a reality that matches the static, fragmented, uncertain, inconsistent. This is why the practice of this transmission is not about thinking the right thoughts. It's about creating coherence between your thoughts and your feelings, between your intentions and your embodied states, between what you know is true about your life and what you let yourself feel as true. Because coherence is not a spiritual achievement. It's a physical state. It's a measurable property of your electromagnetic field. And it is something you can cultivate deliberately and consistently through the practices we've explored in this transmission. Through conscious contact with your own field, through the deliberate generation of high-frequency emotional states, through letting yourself know what you know without contradiction, through broadcasting the frequency of your completion rather than the frequency of waiting. And when your field becomes coherent around the reality you've been calling in, when your aura broadcasts the frequency of that reality with clarity and consistency, something happens in the quantum field that is as precise as physics and as personal as love. The probability collapses. The wave function resolves. The reality that was already assembled in the unseen layers arrives in your visible experience. It's already done. Your field just needs to know it. Before we move into our final integration, I want to ask you something. And I'm asking because the community of people who engage with these transmissions is itself a field, a collective electromagnetic field of conscious radiators whose combined signal amplifies what's possible for each individual. What is the thought you've been repeating most? Not the one you want to be thinking, the one that's actually been running. The one that, now that you've been in this transmission, you can see has been shaping your broadcast. And what is the knowing underneath it? The thing that's been true in your field this whole time, beneath the conditioning and the doubt and the inherited patterns. the thing your aura has been trying to broadcast through all the static. Share it. Not because sharing it makes it more real. It's already real in your field. But because the act of articulating it, of bringing it into language, and offering it to a community of conscious radiators, introduces a new level of coherence into your broadcast. When you name what you know, you stop hiding it from yourself. And when you stop hiding it from yourself, your field stops hiding it from the quantum field. Drop it in the comments. One sentence. What has been broadcasting? And what is the knowing underneath it? Because the field of this community is real. The combined electromagnetic influence of a group of people who are consciously attending to their own energy fields, who are deliberately choosing coherence, who are broadcasting with intention rather than by default. That combined field is measurably more powerful than any individual field. And every person who shares, every person who acknowledges their knowing, every person who chooses to broadcast consciously in this space amplifies the signal for everyone else. Your light amplifies ours. Ours amplifies yours. That's not poetry. That's quantum field mechanics. Now let's bring this all together into your integration principle, the single understanding that you carry forward from this transmission and let live in your field. Every thought you've been repeating has been shaping your aura. Your aura has been broadcasting a signal. The quantum field has been reading that signal and assembling a reality around it. That reality, the one shaped by your most consistent, most embodied, most frequently rehearsed thoughts and feelings, is already assembled in the quantum field. It is already done. It exists as a coherent probability, moving through the unseen layers toward your visible experience. The only variable is your signal. If your signal has been coherent around what you want, if your repeated thoughts have been generating genuine, embodied feelings of certainty, completion, and knowing, then the reality you've been calling in is already in motion and moving toward you faster than you might imagine. If your signal has been incoherent, if there's been contradiction between what you think and what you feel, between what you want and what you believe is possible, between the reality you're calling in and the reality your body has been rehearsing, then the work is to create coherence, not to eliminate the old patterns overnight, not to achieve perfect, sustained high-frequency states, but to introduce consistently and deliberately moments of genuine coherence into your field, moments where your thoughts and feelings align, moments where you let yourself know what you know, moments where your aura broadcasts the frequency of completion rather than the frequency of waiting. Because each moment of coherence shifts your trajectory. Each moment of conscious broadcasting shifts the dominant frequency of your field. Each time you bring your awareness to your own signal and choose, even briefly, even imperfectly, to broadcast with intention rather than by default, you change what the quantum field assembles around you. This is the integration principle. Your signal is already broadcasting. Your field is already shaping reality. The question is not whether you're radiating. You always are. The question is whether you're radiating consciously. And from this moment forward, you are. Let's close with one final practice, the simplest and most powerful one. Bring your awareness to your chest one more time. Feel the center of your field. Feel the electromagnetic reality of your own heart generating its signal, extending outward in every direction, broadcasting into the quantum field. And now, let your field carry a single frequency, not a thought, not a word, a feeling. The feeling of it being done. The feeling of the reality you've been calling in already existing in the field, already assembled, already complete, already moving toward you. Let that feeling be present in your chest. Let it be present in your field. Let your aura broadcast it without qualification, without contradiction, without the static of doubt or the noise of impatience. Just done. Just complete. Just already true. Breathe into it. Let your field expand with it. Let your heart generate its electromagnetic signal from that state, from the state of completion, of knowing, of the reality that is already assembled and already on its way. This is your broadcast right now. This is your signal. This is what your aura is sending into the quantum field in this moment. And the quantum field is reading it. And reality is assembling around it. Right now. In this moment, in the unseen layers that will become your visible experience. It's already done. You've been glowing this whole time. You've been radiating this whole time. Your field has been broadcasting this whole time. The only thing that has changed in this transmission is that now you know it. Now you can see it. Now you are conscious of the signal you've been sending and the reality you've been calling in. And a conscious broadcast is infinitely more powerful than an unconscious one. Your aura is active. Your light is conscious. Your signal is clear. The repeated thoughts that have been running in your field, you see them now, not as problems, not as failures, as the mechanism by which you've been shaping reality all along. And now that you see the mechanism, you can direct it. You can choose what to rehearse. You can choose what to embody. You can choose what to broadcast. You don't need to become radiant. You need to stop dimming the radiance that's already there, and you've already started. The moment you brought your conscious awareness to your own field in this transmission, the moment you felt for your knowing, the moment you let the frequency of completion be present in your chest, the moment you chose, even briefly, to broadcast with intention, you started. The trajectory has shifted. The signal has clarified. The reality that has already been assembled in the quantum field is now moving toward your visible experience with greater precision and greater speed, because your broadcast is more coherent than it was an hour ago. That's not a small thing. That's everything. What you radiate, reality assembles around, and you are radiating something extraordinary right now. If this transmission served your field, return to it in the quiet of morning stillness or just before sleep, when your field is most receptive and the signal lands deepest. And if you know someone whose light needs reminding, someone whose aura is ready to remember what it's been broadcasting all along, share this with them. That act of sharing is itself a ripple of radiance. It activates their awareness of their own field. And when two fields come into conscious resonance, both are strengthened. That's not sentiment. That's how coherence compounds. Your light is on. It has always been on. And now you know it. Welcome to your own field. Welcome to your conscious broadcast. Welcome to the reality that's already done. Shine. Not because you should, because that's what you are. And if you want to go even deeper into what your field is capable of, the transmission on energy field activation is waiting for you. Once your energy field fully activates, nothing low frequency can reach you ever again. Your aura already knows the way there. Let it lead you.